SQology Podcast interview with Geoff Schneider. Hi, Geoff.
Hey, Ben, how's it going?
Not too bad. What's going on?
Not too much. Just got home from a long day at work.
Yeah, hardly working or working hard. I,
A little bit of both.
yeah, right. I know we know each other. I know a lot of people know you, but for those that don't, do you want to give us some background on, I guess, who you are, where you've been in the hobby, how you started, um, maybe where you see yourself going in the hobby, and just kind of a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I can do that. So, my name's Geoff Schneider. I started in audio around 2009. There were some shows out in Washington, where I'm from, Vancouver area. And I had some friends that were into audio, but, I didn't get too into it. And then when somebody told me there was a show coming up, I decided, well, maybe I'll try and get something going. So I got two SA8s in my car, and I went down to go to this competition. And actually, I believe it was on my way down to the show, I actually got rear-ended at about 55 miles an hour while I was completely stopped.
Yikes.
Yeah, so I was out of commission for that. And it took about a year to get another show out there because it was when the audio scene was starting to develop out in the Northwest. So I got out there and I had some hybrid audio Imagines in my temporary car, which was a Nissan Sentra, because I was waiting on my settlement to happen. And I went out there and I met a ton of cool people. I met Bill Pleasant. He actually
Oh,
he got paired with me to mentor me.
really?
Yeah, it was really
You
cool.
poor kid.
Yeah.
What up,
Yeah,
Bill?
Bill's a great guy. He really helped me out and learn a lot about how everything worked together.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I had a little rivalry because I was on the forums with Jeremy Weaver. So we ended up being in the same class, and I managed to beat him, I think, by like 2 or 3 points, and he was mad.
Nice. So this was a Mecha SQ event, I'm assuming, or
Oh, no, this was an IASCA event,
Ayaska?
actually.
On the,
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah, this was Travis Chen was at this show, and I
Okay.
believe the judge for our class was actually John Davis. I don't know if he does too much anymore, but he used to do a lot of hybrid stuff out there for a while. But yeah, it was a really fun event, and that's when I just got hooked. So that was, I believe, 2010 when that event happened, and man, it was so cool.
Okay.
Uh, and then after I ended up getting my settlement money, I was so into the hobby, I actually decided to move out where it was a lot more prevalent. So I had some friends in Ohio, and I decided why not. So I moved to Ohio from Washington.
Just for SQ,
Well, not just for SQ, but that
okay,
was a big part of it.
right?
Yeah, it's one of those things. You kind of get involved with it, and then it's one of those things that you want to do. You get involved, and you feel it's something you're destined to do, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Right, right.
So after all of that, oh, go ahead.
No, go right ahead.
Well, so I got here, and one of my friends asked me to help judge a mecha event by just doing the meter placing in SPL. So I did that, and he taught me all kinds of stuff about mecha. So I decided the next year I'd become a judge in 20, I believe it was 2013 when I actually became a judge.
Okay. And I know you've judged an SQology show for us last summer sometime. We were at GNC Customs for a show,
Yeah,
and
yeah, in Goshen.
you judged us there. Appreciate that.
No problem.
Right?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun at that event, and I hope to do another one here in not too long. But my next big show that I have coming up is the Parts Express show. So I believe it's July 15th at in Springboro, Ohio, and this is a really cool show. So it's Parts Express, as everybody knows, is a big online retail for raw speaker drivers and all kinds of fun audio related stuff. And they have a huge tent sale, and all of their stuff in the warehouse is on sale. I think last year it was like 20% off of everything. And then you also get 20% off of the already discounted clearance B stock scratch and dent stuff.
Because
So that,
we hide speakers anyway, so who cares if they got scratches and stuff?
or if it was just returned, if the box has a
Oh,
dent in it.
oh, hey, nice. Some good deals there for sure then,
Absolutely. So
right?
that's the next one I'm going to do. That's going to be a Mecha 2X event, and it's a lot of fun. I'm really glad that they wanted to have us back because we had an incident last year with some SPL guys playing some foul music. So I encourage people not to do that because I will be the security at this event.
Ah, and you're big and scary, so yes. All right. So I know that you have started your own, I guess, business. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I kind of got into 3D printing last year. I went to Maker Faire in the San Mateo area, and I was just fascinated by it. And so I decided, well, I should probably buy a printer and start getting into this. And my work actually had some, so I decided first to play with theirs. And once I got familiar with it, I ended up buying two more printers.
Nice.
And I mean, now I'm able to print all kinds of cool stuff. So I've been printing pods for speakers. Tweeters are the ones that I kind of specialize in. They're a little bit easier and smaller. I can get more intricate designs going, and they print a little bit faster, so it works out. So I can prototype and get things working best for whoever orders them.
Gotcha.
So the business is called Printed Acoustics. It has a Facebook page, and it would have a website if I wasn't too lazy to get one going.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, we try to help out because I know fabrication is expensive and not everybody can afford it. But
Right.
it's an alternative to if you don't mind it being not the absolute prettiest, like fabrication, which is obviously my first choice as well.
Right.
But if you want to just test some locations and you want to save up for a really nice install from somebody, this is a good way to bridge the gap in that time period.
It makes sense. And I suppose you could even finish the outside of the pods if you wanted to keep, you know, the original pod underneath.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wrap them or texture them or do whatever.
Yeah, I've heard people actually flocking the material that I use. This is PET G, so it's pretty good about being like heat resistant, and it's basically like uh, the material that soda bottles are made out of, but it's a lot thicker,
Huh.
and so it's impact resistant, heat resistant. It finishes really well too, and it's nice and glossy when it prints.
Right. Interesting. Well, I've seen some that you've sent out to some people, and I'm pretty impressed with what I've seen so far. So
Mm-hmm.
good luck
Well,
with
much
that.
appreciated.
Right. Right. Nice. So, being a judge, I know that you judge. You get to hear a lot of cars, and I know you've judged some bigger events here, at least in the Midwest, that have had quite a number of cars show up, and you're very quick. With I know that you're in those cars for like 7-8 minutes, and you've got a really good feel for how the car sounds, and you actually really give some really good feedback. You've judged my vehicles, and I'm always pleased with um your judging style anyhow. So I'm curious, in all of these cars that you get to hear, first of all, let's talk about um, what, as a judge, what are you really listening for? What features of the system are you looking for to stand out to you? Are you looking for tonality? Are you looking for precise imaging? Are you looking for all of that? Is there something that really jumps out at you when you're, let's say, like maybe the top few cars that you've heard and you've been wowed? What aspects of those cars have really, wowed you?
Yeah. So I think that I have a couple favorite cars that I've ever heard, and I think right now, as far as from a judging aspect, I think I listened to and judged Steve Cook's truck in 2016 at SBN, and that car it's just phenomenal. There are just some things that it does that I haven't heard a vehicle do, and he has fantastic tonality, but where he really somehow manages to make it work is his staging. It's outrageous. It's so far outside the left and so far outside the right, and really props to Steve Cook for all he does for the audio community. I mean, he's not shy about sharing any of his information. I mean, you could go up to him, ask him what's going on in his truck, and he's more than willing to tell you pretty
Yeah,
much anything about it.
yeah.
Uh, but it's just such an experience. So I encourage anybody, if you ever get a chance to listen to it, take that chance, and it'll be worth your time.
Okay.
And my second favorite car, while I was out at Maker Faire in 2016, I decided that I would go and listen to Richard Poppeson's car. Now, this wasn't as a judge, this was just as a visit because he was in the area.
Sure.
And there were just some things about his Civic. I mean, his Civic obviously tied for SQ Best of Show. I believe it was 2015. And there, that is the most dynamic vehicle I have ever heard.
Huh.
It,
As far as
it
impact and
oh yeah, I mean it just I haven't been in a car that I've actually enjoyed more than
okay.
that.
Okay.
So from a judge, I liked Steve Cook's a little bit more, but from somebody that would listen to a vehicle, I would take Richard's every day. There's just something
Right.
about it.
And I mean, it's a Honda Civic. How many people have that car? And it's really interesting to see somebody who has taken one of those cars. And I know there's some other high profile guys who have that car, and it's interesting to see the different approaches to the same vehicle and the results that they can achieve and how they differ, and it's just really interesting. And same thing with, I think, what Steve's is, what, an Avalanche.
Yeah, he
I
has an Avalanche.
Yeah, and I know his is highly modified inside, um, but again, it's a very popular truck, so
Yeah,
it's cool when people take those popular vehicles, and there's a bunch of them on the road, and um, just to see what they do with them.
absolutely. And the funny thing about Steve Cook is, I mean, we have kind of an inside joke in Mecca about Steve Cook because he'll spend all of this time tuning outside of finals, and then he gets to finals, and you think he'd be ready, but then
It
the
starts
day,
over.
oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
when I saw him in 20, I think it was 2014 at finals,
Uh-huh.
I was just there as a spectator that year, and I saw him tear his entire dash out, and he had every speaker in the car out, and he was just
Really?
working on the dash. And I
Wow.
mean, he does this every year. He does like almost a complete tear down,
Hmm.
and he retunes, and he always seems to do extremely well. It's just it's Steve Cook.
Sure. Neat. All right. So again, along with the theme of, hey, you've heard a bunch of cars, um, let's talk about common areas where people seem to need some improvement. Um, and I don't know if we want to be super broad or very specific, or I mean, let's say you go to an average show in the Midwest, you've got 20 cars show up, and you've got some really good ones, but then a lot of them are just kind of in that mediocre range. And I guess, do you see common areas where people need some work that maybe we could guide people to some, I don't know, steps to take to improve those things?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, one of my areas that as a listener, that I really pay attention to is like the mid range. So that's the range that I think is personally most important. I mean, when I hear a good mid range, it's one of those things where you just kind of, it's nice, it's detailed, but nice and silky smooth at the same time. It's one of those things where you kind of just like you can relax in a car when you hear something like that. It's soothing.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, this is what it's supposed to sound like. And I don't think that they understand that it's not all about extreme high detail, because when you focus on getting a pinpoint image or something like that, it's awesome because you can see where you can hear where they're at.
Hmm.
But sometimes you lose a little bit on tonality, and I don't think that everybody really focuses enough on really trying to get a good mix of everything. So I think it falls on both Mecca and Iaska competitors. It happens all the time, regardless of which org. It's either you're leaning one way or you're leaning the other, and it's one of those things where you need to just understand you're never going to get perfect on both. So go for a good medium. Don't just go for awesome tonality or great staging. Just go for the best that you can with both.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, the mid range is crucial. I mean, that's the bulk of music lies in the mid range. I mean, all the vocals, generally all of the lead instruments, and they're all in that frequency band where we're most in tune to that range as humans. It's where our voices lies, and if that's off, then it's hard to recover from having a poor mid range tonality even. So
Absolutely.
I get that. All right. So I know you're also pretty active on the internet.
Hmm.
Why are you laughing? We talk about this. Everybody's on the internet. Nobody likes to say they're on the internet. But
Yeah, yeah. I'm on social media quite a bit,
uh-huh.
and sometimes a little bit too much.
And
It's one of those things. I do sometimes manage to get myself in trouble, but
we won't go there.
yeah,
Where I do want to go with the whole internet thing is maybe some common hot topics that you see in the discussion groups, and maybe we can chat about those. I don't know if you have any favorites, maybe topics that come up repetitively, or um, I don't know. That's kind of open ended to you, I guess.
I've got a good one that both you and I can relate to.
What's that?
So the tweeter list topic.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, I heard your car. I think with the first time I heard it was at finals in 2016. Was that
Oh,
correct?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So you had just come.
No,
I've
no,
never
no,
met you.
2015.
It was 2015.
2015, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, but
So
yeah,
I heard your car 2015,
right,
and I went in, listened to it. I think we were going back and forth, and I kept having to get pulled away. And at the very end of the show, I'm like, okay, I need to go listen to your car.
right.
So I went over there and listened to it. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. And then I think I asked you what tweeters you were running,
Uh-huh.
and you're like, well, I'm not.
What tweeters?
And
Right.
that was the first time that I actually heard tweeter lists kind of throw me for a loop. I had never really heard one that kind of made me step back and think, wow, this is really cool.
Huh.
So from then on, I actually took out my A pillars where I actually got a different vehicle, but I decided I wasn't going to do tweeters for this next car. So I ended up doing a set of Audible Physics RAM 2s in there. And I went into Modified Street, I think, that year. Yeah, that was last year. And I got I got third place. And there was a 1 point variance between first and third.
Wow.
So it was pretty cool. And
Yeah.
I had simple two-way. I had a set of Ram 2s, Ram 6s in the doors, and in the back I had a Dayton 12-inch shallow sub.
Huh.
And
Huh.
my favorite part of the system was the Helix P6 DSP MK2. Man, that thing is awesome.
Hey, I've got one in my truck. You don't have to convince me. That thing's a workhorse for what it is.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can't think of a better value for the money for what it is, really.
Right.
'Cause everything is all right there.
Yep. Yep.
But I don't think people give Tweeterless enough credit because I still see people saying that it's not that a 2-inch or a 3-inch isn't going to have enough top end. But I mean, as you and I both know, as long as you know how to tune it correctly and you know how to get a proper installation.
There you go. Aiming, is a big piece of making a tweeterless system work, I think. I've heard Andy touch on that. He calls them, what does he call them? Twiddlers, I think. And it depends on location, and if they're on axis, off axis, if it's reflected off glass. I mean, there's a whole lot that goes into making a wideband perform the way that it needs to. I think when it comes to installation, and then on top of that, the tuning, of course. But yeah, it's I think Matt Hall won some prestigious awards at finals, and then again at SBN, and he's using some tweeterless drivers also. So yeah, I mean the big reason that I chose to do that is because of the image focus. When you've got everything radiating from a single voice coil, it just makes tuning that much easier when you don't have to align a separate mid-range driver and then split it off to a tweeter somewhere just above or in the mid-range, you can really lose some coherency there. So getting that right in a two-way system or three-way with a mid-bass and then tweeter and mid-range is more difficult, at least for me, than it is with a single driver playing everything from, let's say, 300 hertz on up.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And
yeah,
I mean, for me, I being as busy as I am traveling for work and doing all of the other home owning things, I'm sure as you know, it takes a lot of time. So having a two-way system, it makes it a lot faster as well.
yeah,
I mean,
totally,
it really does because
totally.
you I know that muting every single speaker except one gets really, really tiresome, especially if you have like 8 or 9 speakers. You have to
Hey,
start doing that too.
well, you have the P6 DSP. Do you have the newest software?
I actually am getting ready to download it. I have it. I have the page pulled up right now.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay. Yeah, the latest updates make it very easy to group channels and mute things all at once, and like they, they've made things so much more user friendly in regards to a lot of the UI.
Mhm.
Anyway, all that aside, yeah, I think the widebander is, so many people are cringing right now when they hear that word. Um, that topic has been going on since before I was active on the internet. I know that. And anyway, I just adopted it and liked it, and I've been using it. So yeah, I do the same thing in my truck. My truck's a simple little stupid system too, just subwoofers, mid basses, and widebanders.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it just doesn't get the credit it deserves. You know,
Yeah.
it's just one of those things. People, it gets expensive when you start buying like some more expensive drivers. Where if you buy a 2-inch driver and a mid bass, it kind of it helps me out financially.
Right. Right. So I I know you gave a little bit of your background in SQ. Did you also have some SPL history, or am I making that up, dreaming that up?
Well, I started in SBL. I was on caraudio.com for a long time. I never really competed in SPL, but I would used to do a lot of just, you
Obnoxious
know,
things.
a lot of obnoxious things, yes.
Okay.
And I was going to try for SPL, but then after I got my car accident, it was out of the range for me of things for me to do since most of that stuff is pretty heavy.
Oh, right, right,
Yeah,
right.
so I wasn't able to lift much and do all of that. So I just kind of kept it simple and decided, let's just work on some of the other things. So I got some people to help me with the subs, and I did some basic stuff like that. But when I went to that show, I mean, I think I had my subs pretty much off at that point, and I just had the Imagines in there. And man, what those that was close to when they first came out, and those things
Yeah.
were awesome. I remember having them in a teardrop shaped pod on my door, and man, it was cool.
Huh. Okay. Well, the reason for that question was because I've seen more and more a lot of people who are, what we'll just call them SPL people, seem to be taking an interest in SQ.
Hmm.
And so I didn't know if you had any thoughts on that, or if you had any maybe suggestions if there are people listening who are coming from SPL world and want to get their feet wet in SQ. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, being a judge in a mecha show where SPL is still the bread and butter,
right.
I mean, it's a really cool thing to see some guys from SPL side kind of wander over and ask to listen to some of the SQ cars, and it does happen. And
Mm-hmm.
I actually encourage it at a lot of my shows, um, but it's just one of those things. It's hard to explain what a good SQ car is, really.
You have to experience it.
You really do, and that's what I try and tell people.
Yeah.
So I mean, I try
Yeah.
and tell them to just don't listen to what I have to say. Just go over there and take a listen to it and experience it for yourself.
And then ask questions.
Absolutely, that's
Yeah.
the main thing. Is just ask, even if you think you know it all, you never do. You can always learn.
Right. Right. Okay. Um, I've got one more question for you. It's actually it's a multi-part question, so it's two questions in one. I'll ask them both at the same time, and then you can answer. Um, First one is, have you personally experimented with high res audio? And follow up to that is, do you find that there's something there beyond CD quality wave format that, go ahead. That's it. Loaded question.
Well, I don't have anything as far as high res beyond. Obviously, I have like CD, like the HD CDs and stuff like that I've played with, and I feel like I can personally tell a difference between that and a normal CD. Um, but as far as in a vehicle, I've only heard a couple, and it's weird because you wouldn't really think that that a high fidelity track, something like a FLAC track of the same song that you could get on high res, you don't think it'd be any different, but really it is. I mean, there's a lot of extra information that's actually there, and I'm a pretty skeptical person,
Okay.
but when I hear it, I mean it. My ears don't really lie. I
Right.
mean, I can hear it. I
Okay.
think there's a difference, but as far as how big it is, I can't really quantify it. I feel that it's noticeable, but how noticeable is that? It's one of those I'm not sure yet.
Okay. So jury's still out. And that's been a pretty common response, I think. I've asked a lot of people this question, and it's interesting to hear the responses. So I've been dabbling myself, just experimenting. I'm kind of like you. I've always been skeptical. So I bought a high res player, and I've been doing my own experimentation. So I'm just curious to get feedback from other people on what they're hearing. It's interesting because I see, where the direction is going, and um, there's early adopters of everything, and then there's skeptics, and there's things like the mini disc that were awesome and they just didn't catch on. So it's I don't know. We'll see where this goes. And so, simple fact, the mini disc was a Sony thing to begin with. So just gonna throw that out there.
Well, it's really cool that you have websites like HD Tracks that are
Uh-huh.
able to cater to everybody like us. And since we also kind of have obscure music taste, most of us, trying to find some of these tracks.
What are you saying? I love my Kenny G. Come on.
How do you feel about Spanish Harlem?
Wow. Okay.
But
Yes.
I mean, it's really cool that HD Tracks is really able to offer all these like smaller artists, kind of a venue to display some of their higher res recordings and stuff like that. But they also do have older releases that remastered and stuff like that. It's really cool.
Yep, I agree. Okay. Well, is there anything else that you want to share? Anything you want to say? Kind of an open-ended, hey, what's going on with Geoff? Anything?
I think we covered most of it. I'm excited for that Parts Express show. I'm excited to see everybody at finals this year. That's going to be a lot of fun down in Louisville. That's not too far from me, so I'm excited.
Yep.
But
All
overall,
right.
I think that's about it.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for the chat.
Oh, no
And
problem.
we'll see you at a show soon, hopefully.
Sounds good. You
All
guys
right.
take it easy.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.